Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar on powering up North Wales with funded low carbon training. My name is Alana Crasco and I am the Communications Manager at ECA. Today I am joined by Keith Sanderson, ECA's Head of Skills Delivery, and Alex Robinson, Head of Training at NICEIC. Just got a few housekeeping points to cover before we head into this webinar session properly. This webinar is being recorded and will be made available soon via the ECA website. There's also a Q&A tab at the top of your screens. Please post your questions in there throughout the webinar for the presenters to pick up at the end of their presentation. You can also vote on other people's questions. The more votes a question gets, the further up the wall it goes. This highlights the more pressing questions you want answered. So without further ado, I will hand over to Keith.
Thank you, Alana, and good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're all well. Thanks for joining us on today's webinar. What is the Flexible Skills Programme? So the Flexible Skills Programme is a Welsh government funded initiative, and that it supports businesses with grants to upskill the workforce. So how this webinar is going to work is I'm going to talk through the process of application and eligibility and what the funding actually is, and Alex is going to talk through the actual delivery model. So Alex will be taking over shortly. But yeah, the overarching theme from me is that it's a good opportunity for your business to access some government funding for training. And the benefits of this, so this programme actually covers up to 50% of the training costs for eligible accredited training courses, and you are allowed to claim a maximum of £50,000 per application of funding. There's also no limits to the number of applications that you can make on this. So if you wanted to do 3 applications at £20,000 each, that'd be absolutely fine under this scheme. And the overarching benefit is that it does address the skills gaps in your workforce, particularly with some of the new regulations that are coming in, which Alex will discuss now, and I'll just hand over to Alex.
Thanks, Keith, and thank you everyone for joining. So before we get into the details about the training that's on offer, I just wanted to give you a little bit of background on some of the changes that are taking place in the industry, which Keith referenced, and may have an impact on your decision-making process on whether you feel that this training is right for you and your business at this particular time. So I'm going to introduce a new acronym to your vocabulary, because as you know, in the electrical industry, we absolutely love an acronym. So some of you, this may be a new one, the EAS, or the Electrotechnical Assessment Specification. So to really simplify it, the EAS is essentially the hymn sheet that electrotechnical certification bodies such as the NICEIC and others design or scheme rules and requirements around. It also has a companion document that sits alongside that, which you can see there pictured on the right, which is the qualifications guide. Now, there's some key changes that are being introduced around qualifications and competence, and these changes are set to come into effect from the 1st of October. So we're just under a year away from those training requirements, which I'm going to discuss in a bit more detail as we go through the presentation. Just to note, as I said, this is for all electrotechnical certification bodies, so it's not unique or specific to NICEIC. So it will have an impact on certified businesses across the industry, whoever that certification happens to be with. Now, some of the key changes centre around competence requirements, specifically with regards to employed persons and qualified supervisors overseeing those undertaking periodic inspection and testing. And there's also been the introduction of 4 new work categories, one for EV, one for solar, and one for electrical energy storage systems. And we're going to look at those new work categories and the requirements related to those in a few moments. But before we do, I just wanted to draw your attention to that definition in the bottom right-hand corner. So you can see there in the bullets, we've got reference to requirements for all employed persons. And how an employed person is defined is those directly employed, temporary or agency staff, subbies, and also that includes self-employed individuals and sole traders. So essentially, it's a catch-all phrase for anyone that is carrying out work on behalf of a certified business. Now, I'm not going to go into a significant amount of detail around the changes because my colleagues at the NICEIC did recently host an episode of The Wire dedicated to the EAS changes and what it means for your business. And this is available on demand via our website. We've also got a dedicated page which includes lots of information and frequently asked questions. And we've also got a dedicated helpline and email address specifically to address questions related to the EAS changes and how it will affect you and your business. If indeed it does affect you and your business, you know, for many, there may not be any impact whatsoever, but we're here to help and we are here to support and advise with all of your queries and questions related to this. So that webinar, I know, was over an hour on its own. So obviously, conscious of time of this webinar and the key topic we're here to discuss, I won't go into the weeds of all of the EAS related changes. But I suppose one or two elements that I do want to really hone in on are around the qualification requirements that are linked to the training offer that we have in North Wales in the new year. So I suppose a killer question for you and your business is, does your business carry out solar PV installations? If the answer is yes, then as you can see there, all employed persons undertaking this work and any of the qualified supervisors responsible for overseeing them will need to hold a relevant acceptable qualification from the 1st of October 2026. And we can see there that the qualification that we offer that meets that requirement is the Level 3 EAL award covering that particular technology. And just to the right hand side, you can see an electrician plus kite mark, which I'm going to explain exactly what that means in relation to the qualification in a few moments' time. Excuse me. One thing to stress is that qualification that's referenced there is not the only qualification that will meet these mandatory technical competence requirements linked to these new work categories. Okay, so you may have another qualification that covers solar PV installation that is perfectly acceptable to meet the requirements. So the document that I referenced earlier, the qualifications guide, which is hosted on the IET website, has a list of all the qualifications that meet the requirements under the specific work category for solar. And you can cross-reference what you hold against that list. We also have a version of that list on our website dedicated to the EAS changes, again, which I referenced a few slides ago. And if you don't, as a business, carry out solar PV installations, then this requirement would not be relevant and there'd be no further action on your part related to this change. And this logic sort of carries through those three technologies. So does your business carry out EV charging installations? If the answer is yes, then there'll be a requirement from next October for anyone undertaking or overseeing the installation of that equipment to hold an acceptable qualification. And finally, just to finish off the piece, the same will apply to electrical energy storage systems installations. And as I mentioned to previously, if as a certified business you don't carry out work across any of those three technologies, then there'd be no further action on your part related to these work categories. But in the same sense, if it is an area or a type of work that you look to branch out into or expand your scope, then you would need to meet these requirements. Just before we look at the specific training that is on offer, I just wanted to take an opportunity just to talk a little bit about Electrician Plus. Some of you may be familiar with this model and you may have seen this kite mark, which, as you can see, has solar, EV and storage, that sort of holy trinity of low carbon technology. So this kite mark is used to endorse relevant qualifications to show they are industry approved in terms of their content, their assessment, but I suppose first and foremost that they're only available to electricians that meet the industry level 3 benchmark in terms of qualifications. So ultimately, you need to be an electrician first and foremost before you can then access CPD, these plus elements. And that entry requirement is going to be level 3 MVQ or equivalent modern or historical qualification, essentially aligned with the core competence requirements outlined in the EAS qualifications guide. And ultimately, the key reason to implement this model and these entry requirements is to help safeguard against non-qualified and underqualified personnel from undertaking renewable installations, and obviously the risks that can pose. So, you know, it's a positive move to protect the sector and make sure it's the right people with the right qualifications installing and completing these sorts of installations. Also worth noting, a lot of people, when they've been on Electrician Plus qualification, they like to, you know, they want the logo on the, by rights, they've earned, you know, the qualification, they want the logo on the van, they want the logo on the t-shirt, they, you know, they're proud of what they've achieved. Just to clarify, the kite mark itself is used to endorse the qualification rather than the individual. So, you know, I'm an electrician, being on the solar course, that doesn't make me Electrician Plus. That's not an individual accreditation. It's something that denotes the qualifications, as well as the EAL qualifications that I referenced. I'm going to talk about in more detail in a moment. The equivalent qualifications from Sitting Guilds, BPEC, LCL awards covering these three technologies. Their current live versions are all aligned to Electrician Plus. So any training provider offering those qualifications will need to implement these same entry requirements in terms of candidates coming forward. So that's a little bit of background about some of the changes that are going on in the industry and some of the detail behind the qualifications is included on this table. So you can see there the 3 qualifications that we're offering, all level 3, all regulated, accredited qualifications. They'll each cover the design, installation, testing and commissioning of the relevant technologies, and they'll all be aligned to the latest requirements of BS 7671. You can see there for solar, that'll be focusing, a lot on section 712. For EV, it'll be 722. And the relevant parts that will relate to electrical energy storage systems. They're all aligned to the latest IET code of practice and the relevant MCS standards. The solar itself is 4 days in duration, and it includes a practical assessment and online multiple choice test. When it says open book, that will be with the IET code of practice relative to the technology and some relevant MCS standards. The EV award is a 1 day, and that is a theory only assessment. And then the energy storage is a 2 day in the main with a half-day practical assessment, which will take place a day during the week outside of the core 2 day delivery. And again, that has a practical assignment and open book online test. Again, BS 7671, IET code of practice, and the relevant MCS standards will all be able to be referenced during that exam and assessment. In terms of where and when, it's taking place at a training centre in Wrexham, North Wales. For those of you that may know the region, it will be located on the Wrexham Industrial Estate near to Kellogg's. And you can see there we've got dates in January and March of next year, 2026. Also worth noting, if you are a larger business with numerous operatives to train, then you can get in touch with us and we can look at potentially dates outside of those, and we can deliver that in company at perhaps your premises or a suitable venue as a closed session for your operatives and your business. Where can you go for more information? So we do have a dedicated web page with details that we've discussed in today's presentation, links to some of the documents that Keith's going to talk about in a moment when I hand back over, and then also dedicated pages with more specific details on the courses, the training and the assessment and all of that good stuff as well. So all the information you'll need to make an informed decision about whether you're eligible for the funding and whether the training is right for you, and specific details about those dates and venues as well. So I'll hand it back over to you, Keith.
Thank you, Alex. And I'd just say, if anyone does have any questions for Alex on the training, the offer, the venue, anything like that, please just pop it in the chat for us so we can answer it at the end. So just back onto the application, I guess the most important part of this is, am I eligible? So to be eligible to attract this funding, your business must be based in Wales, must be solvent, and you must commit to releasing the staff to undertake the training. That training needs to be completed by the end of March 2026 to get the funding in this year's run. We, as ECA or NICEIC, we don't make the decision on the funding awards. That decision is made by the Welsh Government, and so it's all around your eligibility. But you can get support to understand whether you are eligible. So firstly, You just need to complete the expression of interest form on the Welsh Government website. So the link is there. We can provide that to you following this webinar, but equally if you just pop it into Google, it'll come up with the link. That brings you to a number of questions which you just work your way through about your business. Nothing too taxing or challenging, just basic information that they ask for. And then following the submission of that form, you'll get contacted by the Welsh Government skills team. So they suggest 10 days. It seems to be turning around quicker than 10 days, but they give themselves up to 10 working days to give you an answer on your eligibility and a full application form. They also will offer you at that point support from the client relation team should you need it to complete any element of the application process. So what are the application forms like? What will you need to complete and what support will I get? So you'll receive a flexible skills program application form, which is personal to you and your business. The skills development plan, which is all about which programs you are looking to undertake, and what they call a merit self-assessment program, which if you're a sole trader, you don't have to do. Outside of that, it does need completing, and that's around the setup and makeup of your business, and it identifies any further training needs that you might need later on down the line. Applications at times can be quite onerous and challenging when you're a busy individual and you've got you may have a business to run, you may be flat out with work, which most of you are. So to help you with that, NICEIC, ISC and ECA are supporting you with any questions relating to your forms. We have actually pre-populated certain elements of the forms just to make it easier for you. So things like benefits to business, benefits to the individual, that will normally take up quite a bit of your time to complete. We've actually completed that and we can help you to add that into your form. And there's also support available from the Welsh Government Client Relationships team if it's something that between us we can't manage to resolve, but it shouldn't get to that point because it is fairly straightforward. So just to summarise what we've talked about, and then we'll look to see if there's any questions that have gone into the chat. You can claim £50,000 of funding per application. There's no limits to the amount of applications you can put in to draw down this funding. Eligibility is assessed by the Welsh Government, and you must complete the expression of interest form. So we don't have a final say, Welsh Government do. Alex has talked you through the training offer. So EV charging points, small scale solar photovoltaic systems, and the electrical energy storage systems as well. We will support you with your application should you need it, either through ourselves at ECA, NICEIC, or the Welsh Government. Any training committed to must be completed by the end of March 2026. And I guess the final thoughts are not to miss out on this and to use this funding and this initiative to address any skills gaps that you may have in your workforce. So thank you for joining us. Thanks for joining this webinar. It's great to see you on here. Any questions for any of us?
Thank you, Keith and Alex. That was a really insightful presentation, very informative. There isn't any questions on the chat, so that must have meant you've done a pretty good job answering any thoughts that people may have. So just to say really that if you do have any questions after this webinar's ended, please do email education@training@eca.co.uk. So I'd just like to thank Alex and Keith again for the presentation, and thank you all for joining us, and goodbye.
Bye everyone, thank you.
Cheers.